On today's episode of The Intangibles, we'll be kicking things off as always with the play of the game. At 11 minutes and 45 seconds, we'll answer the question, what are some tips for cube draft beginners in Magic the Gathering? And finally, at 29 minutes and 6 seconds, we'll take a crack at designing our own original Overwatch heroes. Alright, hello and welcome to The Intangibles episode, whatever number that I decide to make it later on in post-production. I am Kenny, joined by my brother,
Matt!
Thank you.
So I wasn't sure that was getting tossed to me. It's me, it's Matt! It's Matt, he's here!
Very good. We have, I would say, the greatest show to date because I picked the topics today.
I think we've been on a linear ramp upward since we started, so...
It might go exponential at any moment now if I ramp up even further. We have the play of the game, as always. We have an FAQ about Magic the Gathering, and then we have a very juicy breakdown where me and Matt are going to try our hand at designing something in a game, which I am very excited to delve into.
Yeah.
But, as always, we're going to start with a play of the game.
Poke chat, poke chat.
Let's do it, yeah. Do you want me to start since this is your week?
Yes, please. I need some juicy because I have extensive notes about this play of the game.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. So I've been watching a lot of we're in the June Joust qualifiers right now. I've been watching a lot of the matches, been trying to stay up to date on that. And there was one play in particular. It was the LA Gladiators, versus the Paris Eternal. And I was watching from the point of view of Shu, who was a support player. He was playing Baptiste at the time, who's one of my favorite champs to play. And this whole thing that I'm going to describe to you takes place over the course of like a minute and 15 seconds. So it was a really long chunk of time during this match. And it's towards the end of defense point A at Hollywood. So the Gladiators are defending, the Eternal are attacking, and things are starting to get to the overtime point at point A. So things are looking kind of bad at the beginning of this play for the Gladiators, and Shu proceeds to, again, over the course of like a minute and 10 seconds, he proceeds to get the kill shot on enemy Orisa after he drops his window for his team. Seconds later, again, putting it all together and watching it and thinking about it afterwards is like, holy shit, this is crazy. But kind of watching it in real time, it didn't feel quite the same to me. It felt like he was just out there doing his thing, but it was so impactful. So he kills Orisa. He's then, doing his thing, pumping some heals around to his teammates, reaches up to the sky, puts a couple shots on Mercy, takes her out. Starts healing his team, throws Immortality Field over to his friendly Orisa, keeps her alive, keeps her from dying. Again, pumping out heals this whole time. He sees Khan from the Eternal on BAP, and he puts a couple of shots in him, kills him. Still floating around, ends up killing the Hanzo on the enemy team. By this point, Orisa, who he had killed, is already back to the point, trying to get on there for overtime. He kills Orisa again. Khan comes back. He kills Khan again. So, over the course of this minute 15, he kills a total of 7 people. Some of them, more than once, but 7 kills in that time frame, which basically leads to them winning that point, winning defense there, and securing the match. And I picked this because, again, when I watched it the first time, it's obviously still very impactful, but it was just consistent, solid, spread out play, and he was absolutely the difference maker for his team without having some triple kill or quad kill or something ridiculous. He was just out there doing his job, doing it really well, and taking care of business. So play of the game goes to Shu.
You hope.
My play of the game goes to Shu.
That is, I would say, over a minute and 15 seconds, killing 7 people on the enemy team. I would describe that as a very tangible, appreciable play of the game.
I agree, but what I tried to convey was that it is tangible, but in watching it, it just doesn't feel like it was that big until you really step back and evaluate it. So I find some intangibleness, osity in that.
I can agree with you. I think if you step back even more, you can look at a player who has an awful score in their game, or at least a mediocre score, barely participated in the game until the key moment where they make a play that will never show up in any feed. You will not be able to watch the highlight reel of this, but it is the turning point of the game. This week, I nominate me, Kenny, as the play of the game. That's right, we're going back old school. It's me in a recent game of League of Legends that I played with my friends Troy and Jaren, and we were playing ranked game. We're trying to get back into ranked League of Legends. I went mid lane. So a little bit of background here for the people that don't play League. You're playing 5v5. You're teamed up with maybe people that you are co-oping with online, your friends, but you're going up and being teamed up with random people online. You are champions, you're fighting each other, you're ranking up, you're getting more gold, you're getting more items, and ultimately you're trying to attack the enemy space. That's the baseline. I am in the mid lane. I'm playing a control mage named Lux, so she throws out spells, and I'm going up against a Silas, I'm pretty sure. Troy is in the jungle, so he's roaming around making things happen. He's on a champion called Nocturne, so he's like trying to make plays happen, doing a great job. Jaren is on Nautilus, big tanky hook guy, much like a Roadhog, doing great stuff. But the big story in this game is the enemy top laner is a champion called Nasus. Now, a big difference between Overwatch, which you and I play, and League is that the more kills you get, the more powerful you become. You get more experience, you get more gold.
Would you say Nasus is nasty?
I would say that he is nasty. Because the big thing with him, he is one of the few champs that scales infinitely. One of his basic abilities is he will use his Q to enhance his next auto attack. And if he kills a minion or a champion with it, it grows permanently more powerful. So this basic ability does more and more damage the longer the game goes. And it heals him for more and more health the longer the game goes.
That sounds busted, but I would be interested to hear from you later outside of this if that is a ridiculous thing or if it's pretty balanced out.
I would say at my level of play, it's busted. Because what you need to do against Nasus, the thing that makes him shitty at high levels of play is if you coordinate and like dive him, he has no escape ability. You can gank him, you can kill him. He does nothing in high levels of play.
So when you have no team coordination, you're just kind of fucked.
He just runs wild, and that's what happened. This guy went up 100 farm on our top laner. So as a point of reference, games of League go like 30 minutes, maybe, and you can expect the best people, like the actual pros, will get 10 farm, 10 minions they will kill every minute. This guy was up 100 farm fairly early into the game, so he was very, very fed. So he was just insane. And as we went on, he just became extremely powerful. And the strategy with this guy is he becomes a split pusher, which means that the rest of your team are like running around, doing things, distracting the enemy team, and this guy, Nasus, will just go to some other lane and will just push in, take towers, take objectives, and you have to send multiple people to try to stop him. He just becomes this complete raid boss. He becomes like a boss fight. Like, you have to send...
You have to commit all your resources, and now everyone else is able to fuck up your towers or whatever else outside of that.
Exactly. Exactly right. So, it's very, very late game. Our team pushes in mid lane, which is the main way that you get to their base, and we get one pick. Nasus teleports to the bot lane. He's going for the push to end the game. I match his teleport, go bot lane with him. I have to emphasize how weak and how badly I've been doing this game. I've been so ineffectual. So I'm just trying to like match his push and try to stop him from pushing in by killing his minion wave. We get one push, our team goes in. The Nasus backs off because he sees we're pushing in, and he starts to back. He starts to teleport back to base. But your teleport will get interrupted if you take damage. So I sent a long-range poke ability and stopped his back. He has to stay here. He backs off further and uses teleport, which is a summoner spell that can't be stopped by damage. It can be stopped by CC. So I hit him with a bind. He stopped there again. He backs off a little bit further. I just keep doing this. I stop him a total of 5 times. And in that time, our team wins the game.
I can envision this guy on the other side of the internet,
Just
raging at his
screaming.
computer, throwing his monitors at the wall after the game, just pissed off.
Throwing it at his teammates, like, why did you let this happen? I was so strong. So I give the intangibles to me because I stopped him from backing, and our team won. And extreme rarity, one of our teammates said, well played to me for stopping him. So good on...
This is an unknown teammate, right? Somebody you've never...
Totally random internet
total
person.
Stranger.
Yeah. So
that's when you did something well,
Yeah, it felt good, and I felt like that guy was. I mean, he just got so much free farm up there, and to be able to stop him, oh man, it felt so good. So I need the validation here.
Yeah, I think from a completely objective perspective, that's more intangible. Less tangible than a professional Overwatch player who gets
that's right
7 kills in 70 seconds.
Yeah, suck my dick, Shu.
So I approve. I will vote for you. Now that being said, once we get the audience votes out there, who knows who they'll choose? I can't be the one to decide.
That's true. Well, we'll put it out there. Vote. Hashtag the intangibles. Who do you vote for?
Beautiful. I love it. That was wonderful. I wish I could have seen it.
Oh, I'll send you some video later.
You got some shots?
Yeah. Okay, let us move on, though, to the frequently asked questions.
Question?
Today we're talking about something that you do have some first-hand knowledge in, and I am very curious to pick your brain here. Today's frequently asked question is, what are some tips for cube drafting beginners in Magic the Gathering? So, a little bit of catch-up here. Magic the Gathering is a card game, a trading card game, and you buy packs, you build decks, you fight each other, it's great. What is cube draft? Cube draft is when you make a tailored collection of, in general, very powerful Magic cards, and you shuffle them together, you draft them with your friends, so you pick out the cards, you build decks, and then out of this limited selection, you fight each other. Now, I have a cube, which I am very proud of, and that you have played multiple times. So for the average person coming into it, I mean, you played Magic with me when I first started playing.
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, when I was like 14 or 15 or something.
You played for a couple months before you got bored of that and went on to pursue better things in life.
Something like that.
I kept playing Magic, and that became one of my big hobbies until I eventually built the cube. And then I got you back into Magic via Cube and Commander, and you and I have played a fair amount. So I want to turn it to you first of all, because I think you have definitely learned some things about drafting Cube. What lessons do you feel you have learned about drafting Cube?
I've got a handful of things that I have written down here, and I think that you will agree very heavily on a couple of things. They're like, one of them is just super obvious. One of them is really not obvious, I would say, to the new player, but makes a big difference. And there's a few others that I'll be interested to kind of hear your commentary on. So let me start with the very first thing, which I think is simple, straightforward. Realistically, if you start drafting, you're going to do this probably without even thinking about it. Don't pass up on powerful cards. When you get a pack, if you've got a card that's just strong, it might be expensive, but very strong, you probably want to pick it up. Now, a lot of this too, this is a little funky for me to think about, because recently we did a 4-person cube draft, and a lot of the drafts that we do are either you and I by ourselves or 3 people total. And I think having the 4th person really changed how the draft went, because when you're drafting 2 people or even 3 people, it feels like people can find their niches, and you don't necessarily have a tremendous amount of overlap, or like it kind of naturally starts to divide into these areas. And the more people you add to the draft, the more of that overlap you get, and then the less obvious it becomes where like people's colors and people's themes lie. And so when we did that 4-person draft, the very first pack that we went through, I was like, all right, here we go. It's blue artifact. I'm locked in, ready to go. And then pack number 2 comes around, and all I can get out of it is like green and black, which is just totally off of what I started with. And so it threw a big wrench in my plan, and I had to kind of take a step back, not really settle into something that early, and start to just pick, again, strong cards and kind of see where it went. The strong cards thing is important, and in addition to that, don't lock yourself into something too early. Be willing to pivot, be willing to change as you see what comes through the packs. Because, if you lock in that first pack and then there's nothing else good for 2 more, by the time you start to put the deck together, you're going to be hurting for like genuinely good playables to try to win you the game.
I would say don't be married to early picks is like just a great draft advice in general.
Yeah. Yes, and that's definitely something that I joke about this, but it's like half serious every time we play, where like after 2 cards that I've drawn in the draft, I say, all right, got it all figured out. I'm locked in. I'm ready to build my deck. I know exactly where I'm going. And I joke about it, but that is kind of how I drafted originally. I would have a decision in my mind about where it was going to go because I was more familiar with certain colors and certain types of cards. And that doesn't necessarily give you the best cards to play with.
I think a good way to alter your perception on that is like, I know people are worried about in any kind of draft, you take your first couple of picks and you're worried about, I'm throwing away my first high priority picks if I switch off of that. What you need to think is, if you don't switch when you should, you're throwing away the future like 90% of your draft instead of the first 10% of your draft.
Yeah, and I think too, you can twist it a little bit too and say you're taking high-powered cards away from somebody else still. You still picked those strong cards in a different color that then somebody else could have in their deck that they're building off of, and you kept them away from them. So there's still a positive there, I think. Don't be hard on yourself for picking something that doesn't necessarily work out for you.
Yes, definitely. Don't feel bad about throwing those picks in the garbage.
Yeah. The other big thing, and you were definitely the person who I learned this from, mostly in watching you for a long time and then in starting to ask you questions and talking to you about it, but multi-lands, dual lands, tri-lands, anything that gives you a kind of advantage to getting the right colors of mana out when you need it is super, super strong. And most of the time in these cube drafts, you end up with at least 2 colors, I would say. A lot of the times you could potentially be more than that. So picking up multi-lands as you go, especially if there's not a better card that you see in that pack, can be really beneficial to just try to make sure you're able to hit your land drops, make sure you're able to play the cards that you draw because you've got this versatile land that could be blue or it could be red, and you've got devotion to all those things. So it just gives you it gives you more avenues to play those cards that you've drafted.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it on the head. That's one of my top tips is prioritize lands. So in a normal draft, if you're just opening booster packs and you've got commons and uncommons, I've got 1 rare or a mythic rare, I hope it's good. A lot of drafts in that kind of situation come down to, I hope I get a good bomb. And then my deck will be about, I hope I draw my bomb. When you play most cubes, which are like high power level in general, all the cards are good. There are no bad cards, really. And so it's about who gets to play their great cards. And if you want to do that reliably, you need lands so that you can cast them as you draw them. So you need to prioritize lands much higher than you would in a normal set. Everybody has good cards. You want to be able to cast your cards. So yeah.
It's a really simple way to phrase that. And I think I'm going to paint that inside of my brain now, so I think of that whenever I'm drafting.
And they make great first picks. Like if you open a pack and you are completely uninspired, you look at it and you're like, there's nothing here that really speaks to me, but you get 1 dual land in there, or tri-land, or a fetch land, take the land, Or similarly, take like a signet, take some artifact that will help you cast your spells. Same thing. Mm-hmm. Like that keeps your options open, because if you don't have something that speaks to you early on, just take something that lets you take whatever comes your way. That's a good way to go. One of my other tips is very much along the same lines that you're saying, know what the best of the best are. I was going to say Cube is interesting because when you play Cube, a lot of people, myself included, will sometimes say, I'm just here to have fun. So you're not necessarily trying to do the most optimal strategy. It's like, I want to play mono blue aggro because it's fun. Or I want to play Storm, or whatever it is. But I'm assuming if you're listening to this and you're asking this advice, you're trying to improve your win rate. If that's the case, you need to know what the best cards are in that cube. So watch cube drafts. I would say, in particular, whatever cube you're drafting from, either go look it up. So if you're playing the Magic Online cube or the Magic Arena cube, go look at that list. Go watch people. Or if you're playing somebody's personal cube, ask them, what are the archetypes? What's good here? What are the best cards? And if they're not a dickhead, they will tell you, here's what's good. Here are the best things that you can be doing in my cube. Here are the best of the best cards.
I think that's good advice. And I remember asking you and you providing me the list of cards in your cube. And what I will say is that it took playing and drafting a bunch to really cement those cards and why some of them are good in my head. You know, like just reading through the list is definitely helpful, but you're still going to have to play those cards and really understand how they work together and understand just how they play and really when you're going to want to use them and potentially what you're going to combo them with and that kind of thing.
Definitely. Especially, there are some cards that their power level is absolutely hidden. Like in my cube, I think one of the strongest cards is Strip Mine. This is a land. It comes into play. It can tap for a colorless mana. You can sacrifice it and kill any land. That actually winds up being extremely powerful, especially if you synergize with it and you're trying to deny your opponent's resources. But just casually looking at it, it does not look that good. Oh, a land that I can just lose whenever I want? Great. That sounds awesome. It doesn't look good, but it is good.
Yeah, I feel like I'm spoiled in the sense that the only cube I've ever played with is your cube. And I would be interested to play, I guess, the arena or whatever it is cube and just see how totally different that is versus what I've played with.
So yeah, that's good. So my cube I would describe as a legacy cube, which means that honestly it's a good sampling. If you went into someone else's cube, you would be in pretty good shape. Vintage cube, the difference is you get to play with the most powerful cards. So the Power 9, Black Lotus, Soul Ring, fast mana with the Moxen, Ancestral Recall. I used to have those in my cube, and I took them out because I think they're just playing the lottery. They're so much more powerful than anything else in the cube. That's just a total lottery. Do I get them in my opening hand? If I do, I take them. To me, they're not interesting because you just always take them no matter what.
Sure.
And then it's exactly the same thing like when we play Commander, the person who starts with Soul Ring is just so far ahead of everybody else. And it's just totally luck. So that's why I took them out of my cube. But they do offer a different experience and they open up other styles of decks if you're going to play in an actual vintage cube.
Sure.
But I think the lessons that you have learned playing my cube would apply perfectly well to other generic cubes that you would play.
Yeah, what if you gave me a grade, F to A plus as far as what I've learned in the years I've been playing the cube, where would you land me? B minus?
Wow, like where you're at right now?
Uh-huh. Don't be shy, don't worry about hurting my feelings.
Wow. I think that's really difficult. I think I would give you... Wow. That's tough to grade. I think I would give you a C+, only because, if I'm really being honest, I would give myself like a B. Like I think I have a base understanding, and whenever I go and play Magic Online Cube or Arena Cube, I get my ass handed to me all the time. Like
sure. So if we normalize this, where I think you are A+, I'm like a B. A B something.
Right. There's a difference between our metagame, where it's you and me and Vero and Troy and like our friend group and Amber. Like that's like, oh yeah, I'm A+. Wow, look at me. I'm like, oh, and then here's the rest of the world. Okay, I'm not that good.
Yeah, sounds like I want to keep playing with my friends then.
It's the same thing. Like, how would you rate yourself in Overwatch? You amongst your friends versus you and the world.
I'm an F plus versus the world, and versus my friends. Well, who all plays? You, Jaren. I've got a friend who plays on Switch who's pretty new. I would rate myself like Infinity and beyond with
You're
him.
S plus tier.
That's when I want to go in and just absolutely smurf on some people. I play on Switch. No, that's a very good point. That does make a lot of sense.
It's hard to give
relative.
a generic rate. Yeah, exactly.
Yep, 100%.
I would say, just like putting grades aside, you have definitely progressed quite far as your skills in drafting. That's obvious.
I definitely feel like I am trying to do something specific now, whereas when I first started drafting, it was just kind of picking cards, picking colors, and then putting them together at the end and seeing what happens.
So that's good. This will be our closing note. I did have this written down. I wasn't going to mention it because we were wrapping up. But one of the biggest things in Cube is when you're doing normal drafting, you're just taking the best card of the pack. And then you're in your colors, take the best card of your color. That will take you very far. In Cube, you are trying to develop a specific, focused, synergized strategy. You're basically trying to build a constructed deck out of your draft cards. If you're just taking the best cards, that is not going to work very well for you because all the cards are good. You need to synergize.
Yeah, you'll have to have a lot of multi-lands to support that 5-color deck that you've decided to build.
I mean, that is fun, but yes.
Yeah, when you get Urza out there and you've got Progenitus out there and you just run it on people. I think I've seen Progenitus played like one time in all of the times we've drafted. And I've definitely seen it in dozens of drafts that we've done.
I was very pleased this past weekend because I played a 4-person cube draft with Troy, Jaren, and Aaron. And Troy built a combo-centric deck, and he used Show and Tell to get Emrakul in on turn 3 multiple games.
Oh, fuck. All right. Well, there's your combo for you, baby.
He really got it going. It was very, that's not, well, I do like that style of deck, but he made it work. It was very entertaining.
Yeah, it's fun when that stuff happens. One of the last times we played was the Tinker and Blightsteel Colossus deck that I had that worked more than it's ever worked in the history of me playing the game. I've definitely picked Blightsteel Colossus 10 times, and I think I've played it in just that one game, basically. So
I that's what I like. I like if you're going to go all in on a turn 3 kill, it should not be super reliable. Or if it is, it's because you drafted an insane deck.
Yeah, you got every single card that works with that. Yeah.
All right. That's our tips. We need to move on.
We could talk about Magic all damn day.
We could, but we already have a podcast for that. So, before we move on, a quick word from our sponsors.
Does the thought of leading a group through the creative landscapes of your imagination terrify you? Do you worry about being asked questions you don't know the answers to? Have you wanted to try being a dungeon or game master, but your social anxiety has been holding you back? Hi, I'm Amber, and I used to nearly vomit at the idea of running a tabletop RPG. How'd I get over that anxiety? I haven't. Surprise! I'm still an anxious mess, and you can listen to all of it on Shapeshift, where I've recorded 80% of every game I've ever ran. Over the last 4 years, I've run a ton of indie one-shots like Casketland, a weird Western horror game, to my first ever campaign using Ryutama, a Studio Ghibli-like exploration-focused game. Follow me through my journey learning how to GM and to live with my anxiety. It doesn't go away completely, but it does get easier to manage. Go to geekspective.com to find out more information or find Shapeshift on wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Oh, let's break it down! Why are you so angry?
This week on The Breakdown, a very special edition, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to hear what you have to say. A while ago, this will depend on how the episodes come out, but we mentioned in a previously recorded episode that we might design a hero in Overwatch, and that is the episode we're doing today. So I am so intrigued, and because it's my episode, I'm going to make you go first.
Of course.
Tell me about the hero you want to design in Overwatch, Matt.
Okay. So I'm just going to start by going through the process of how I settled on what kind of champion to make. Overwatch is saturated with damage champs. So I threw that shit out the window. There's no way I was going to make a damage champ. Mm-hmm. There's literally like triple the number of damage champs as there are of support and tank. So we don't need more of that. Let's get rid of them. So that's my starting point. I want a support or I want a tank. Thinking a little bit deeper into that, I think the tank role has become pretty unpleasant to play. And I think in particular from a main tank perspective, I'll put that in quotes. So we've talked about this before, but a main tank in Overwatch is like your big frontliner. They're doing the most work to try to disrupt the team, try to make some space for your team. Yeah, exactly. And realistically, like every tank that's come into the game since we started, other than Hammond, who's oddly a main tank, but in a totally different way, they really haven't added any of these kind of champs. So that was what I wanted to try to fill the void of. I wanted to think about a main tank. So we just talked about what is a main tank. They're making space, they're taking space, they're soaking up damage. They're trying to give your team opportunities to do the things that they're supposed to do, right? You're trying to get openings so your damage characters can secure some kills, make some space for your team to continue to push forward into whatever objective they're trying to take. So I thought about this, and what I settled on was, all right, I'm just going to get into the specifics.
Yes, please.
Are you ready for this?
I am. Hold on, let me get situated here.
I got some handwritten notes here.
Oh my god.
My very first note, and I laugh at this every time I see it, every time I think about this, is it says the Underminer. And if you remember The Incredibles, the end of The Incredibles, there's this mole guy who comes up from underground. He's a villain, and he calls himself the Underminer, which is just a hilarious name. And that is the name that came to mind when I was trying to name my champion, my hero. And the actual name that I settled on is Mica. Mica is a group of minerals whose outstanding physical characteristics include basically crystals that can be split into thin elastic plates. It's a rock-related thing. That's really what you need to know.
Is this from Wikipedia?
Yes, that is. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, of course it is. I can't think of that off the top of my head. I'll make a note here, too, that the last words in the Wikipedia entry are basal cleavage. So please take note.
All right, I'll put that in the show notes.
Anyway, Mica. So the theme here is rocks. So Mica, and I got a little backstory, very loose little backstory I wrote down here. Even I wanted to try to loop it into the universe. So Mica is a geologist, a mining specialist, who was recruited as part of the Horizon Lunar Colony exploration team. Fun. Fitted into the lore. We got that going. So some sort of geologist mining champion. From like an artistic perspective, I don't really know how this would look. I did think about it a little bit, and the two things that came to my mind were, some sort of guy in a mining mech suit, which would very much fit with a Overwatch vibe. Or you've seen the Disney movie Atlantis. For whatever reason, I think of like the demolition guy. I can't remember his name. Vincenzo, I think. Vinny.
Yeah.
I think of that kind of like dirty, like miner guy physique almost for him. So could be anywhere in between.
Or a combo of those.
Yeah, exactly. Could be anywhere between those.
I was going to say, the only thing against the Vincenzo look is that Junkrat kind of has the scrawny demolitionist thing down.
That's very true. So maybe you combine them. You got Vincenzo in a little mining mech suit or like mining attachments or something.
Yeah,
That's kind of where I was thinking.
Gotcha.
So trying to get in a moveset. I wrote down a ton of different potential moves when I was thinking about this, and I'm going to give you the ones that I settled on.
Okay.
I tried to make it not overly complicated because I think that is a symptom that we have in Overwatch today of the kits become... We talked about power creep and design creep. I think that we're in that realm a little bit with the new champs in Overwatch where they're adding more than they should be to these different characters. and they're kind of moving outside their roles because of that. So I tried to cordon him off in a specific role with a specific moveset. So we'll start with primary weapon.
Oh boy.
So primary weapon, I've got mining laser cannon. It's a really long name. Probably just put mining laser or something like that. It's a short to mid-range beam, no scaling or anything like that. So think of a frontliner with a beam, basically. Symmetra's beam, but again, no scaling. You're just up front. You're kind of lasering people down. I added a second weapon to that because I think the way Overwatch is built right now, you do have to have some sort of long-range option. And so I call this as Geopropeller. The way I'm envisioning all of this, so again, you got a mining laser, right? And so the second animation here is basically you're using that same weapon kind of to like pull some rocks out of the ground. Have you seen in not Endgame, I think it's in Infinity War, when the Thanos' one of his children does like the rock things to Doctor Strange, where he like whittles these little pointy rocks and shoots them at him.
Yeah, like the psychic guy.
Yes, exactly. So this is what I'm envisioning, kind of. But the beam kind of pulls some rocks up, whittles them down, and shoots a little group of like almost like shotgun projectiles ahead of you. So it's a little bit longer range, gives you an option to deal with people who are a little farther away, but it's not going to do a ton of damage, especially as you continue to get farther away. So there's my two main weapons.
Okay.
I think
complexity creep already coming in here.
Well, so all I've got left is a shield move and an ultimate move.
Okay, I'm with you.
And these two things are tied together. And I wanted to make the shield a little bit unique in how it works compared to the other characters. I have no idea how, disclaimer, everybody, this is an unbalanced champion who could be dog shit, or could be overpowered. Who knows?
Well, I was going to say, if I can interject there as well. Mm-hmm. Several disclaimers. One, numbers don't mean anything here. And from what I can understand, when people actually make champions, the numbers don't mean anything originally. You have to see how they play. And two, Matt and I are not game designers, and we have nothing but respect for the game designers, and we're not saying we could do it better. We're just having fun. Like, these champions we're making could be easily the most broken, worst designed things. These are just things that we think are interesting.
Yep, exactly.
Continue.
So mineral barrier, as I've named it.
Ooh.
So again, it's all kind of focused around this gun, this tool, whatever it is. And my thought for this barrier, this shield, was that you have a little short amount of time where you can draw some sort of line on the ground. And again, it's a set amount of time. When that time is over, a rock barrier erupts out of the ground wherever that line is. And it lasts for X seconds or however long it takes the team to damage it and take it out. So the idea, like, I'm just thinking to myself, this is a good way to try to cross paths in certain maps to try to get from here to here to have some cover. Obviously, a way to protect your team from damage in certain situations. And again, it's just a little bit different than holding a shield and dropping it and having that shield health that you're constantly working with. It's on a cooldown. You can pop a shield up for a set play you run or for an emergency, and then it's back on cooldown and you gotta reset. The ultimate is tied to the shield.
Okay. And
I called the ultimate Earthquake. Shocking. But basically, when you have your ultimate up, say you draw this mineral barrier in front of you, you can hit your ultimate button and it creates this kind of earthquake collapsey thing where any enemies who are within whatever range of it take some damage from it, get stunned by it, gives your team a little opportunity to try to follow up on some stun and some damage that you've done. And that's it. That's the whole kit.
It feels like a very classic tank.
Yeah. There's nothing crazy about it. It's
which we don't actually have very many of.
And like, I think to myself, like, Reinhardt is that classic tank, right? Melee weapon, big shield, that's your guy. Like I said about the secondary weapon, I feel like in Overwatch today, you have to have some sort of mid-range something. If you can't reach past where your hands go, you're just going to have a bad time in the game for the most part. So that was something that I was very conscious of when I was trying to put this together.
That is great. Micah.
That's right.
I had one question. when you imagine the rock wall ability, how is that different from May's ice wall?
That's a really good question, and I thought about this too. So, interaction-wise, I don't really know. I think I wouldn't allow it to, like, prop people up, if that makes sense. It wouldn't be something that you could elevate the team. Yeah, exactly. It would push people behind or in front, and there's not really a surface on top. So that it can't be used for those weird, quirky things that May's wall can be used for.
One, like, UI thing I was imagining that could be different, because you have a laser weapon. What if you could, like, trace a path, and that's the wall that pops up? Like, you have your scope, and you hold your button, and then you just look along a path on the ground, and you get some kind of curvy...
Yeah, that's basically what I'm thinking of. Like, so
it feels different to cast.
Yeah, it's all based around that same weapon, but yeah, exactly. You're literally, like, yeah, like you said, you're drawing whatever thing it is over that amount of time, and that's where it just explodes out of the ground and isolates enemy team members to your side, pushes them to the other side, gives you a path to walk behind.
The gods at Micah would draw circles around individual champions and isolate them in a little, like, stone prison. Yeah, again, there's no balance here. No idea how this would work. I think it would be really cool to see someone actually develop it and see how it worked. But yeah, I thought it was a cool, unique way to incorporate a shield of some kind while giving it some different utility. Yeah. All right, you ready for my champ?
I'm ready. I'm excited.
So my hero is called Apex. So I had a very similar design goal. Number one, completely agree. Damage was completely off the table. It's like, we have way too many damage champs. It has to be tank or healing, and I'm so glad you went tank because I went healing.
All right.
And this is based off our previously recorded, don't know if it's going to be out by the time we release this, episode about design creep or complexity creep. And one thing that I wound up saying there is, I think that a simple champ does not mean a bad champ or not a complex champ. So my design goal was to add a simple but depthful healer into the game. A champ where simple does not mean bad.
So you've got like a 6-paragraph passive you're going to read me now, or...
No. So I wanted to start with, I have a healer, so this is a support champ. And so I started by thinking, what is a simple but depthful heal ability? Because honestly, that doesn't exist in the game. Like, think of all the healers. All of the heal abilities are just completely straightforward. Right? Think of Mercy, she clicks on someone and she heals them. Zen sends an orb to somebody, and heals them. Brigitte clicks on somebody and heals them. They're all just, like, really straightforward. So my basic heal ability is called Enhance. It is a point-and-click heal, similar to Brigitte or Zen, but the catch is that the heal is more effective on low HP champions.
Okay.
So champions, allies in the critical range are going to get healed more. So if you click on high HP champs, like with a little damage, you'll heal them just a little bit, and then the low ones will maximize your effectiveness. So this is real simple. It's just a point-and-click heal. For new players, they'll work great, and it's intuitive. You want to heal low-health people, but the best players will hold their cooldown, their heal, for the low HP people. And to me, it creates this kind of tension where it's like you're waiting, you're holding out on your heal until they're as low as possible to maximize your effectiveness. So, very intuitive thing to use, but it will actually be more effective the better you are. Next up, I came up with the passive. That was the first ability I came up with. And I built everything else around that. That suggested to me, okay, we have a champion that wants their allies to get low health, and then focus on watching health bars and optimizing when they click on people. So I built the rest of the kit around watching people's health bars and optimizing when they get low. So my passive is called Experimental Control. It is a passive that enhances this character, Apex's abilities, when you're below a certain HP threshold, when you personally are.
Okay. So and even you as a character are enhanced by that. Okay.
Yes. So you're watching your allies get low, you're watching yourself get low, and enemies get low. That's the entire kit. And I don't know how this would enhance. Maybe it would, like, generically enhance all of your abilities. Maybe it just gives you better jump. I thought that would be a cool way to introduce mobility. It's like the lower you get, the higher you jump, to the point where you get really low, you can jump on top of structures you couldn't before. There's a lot of different things that you could do with that. And at this point, I started to think about what this person's kit was, and in my head, it started suggesting they care about evolution and like becoming more advanced over time, which I'll come back to. So this character wants to get naturally low on HP because of their passive. So that suggested another active ability to me, which I'm calling Rapid Adaptation, which is basically a kind of a Lucio ult, but just for you. You get a big shield that decays very quickly. So it's just to absorb damage. You get low, your abilities are high, and you need to pop this thing so you can absorb some damage while you're still doing all of your stuff. Again, very simple. Like a new player, you can just pop that, and that will be good for you. But the best players will know when to activate it.
Sure.
One thing I was thinking of, because I have this passive where you want to be low HP, is that your allies are not going to be helping you out here. You're going to have another healer on your team who's going to be healing you. It's like, I want to manage my own HP pool. So I came up with another ability called Limit Push, which is an ability that can harm yourself.
Huh.
You can
so
reduce...
you literally put yourself in that position where you're more effective.
Yes. So it's an ability, if you just tap the ability, you'll take a set number of damage and it will enhance your next ability. Or you can hold it and it will charge up your next ability. And it could be it just combos with other things. But the other thing I was thinking is that, I was thinking of like line abilities, which we don't really have very many of in the game. And so I was imagining like charging up some ability, the more damage you take, the more effective it is, and it is a wall that will slow people moving through it and accelerate your allies going through it. That scales. But the biggest thing about this ability is it allows you to manage your own HP pool, which is important for the kit. And then the last ability is the ult, which I'm calling Limit Shatter. This is the one I feel weakest about, and I would be most open to change because I didn't know what to do. But basically, I just imagined the UI, where this champion, which is all about evolution, seeing weaknesses in others, you get like a total like vision change, and you see like almost like a heat scan of allies and enemies, and your abilities are enhanced against allies and against enemies that are at low health. And I was imagining it, the one I have right now, which I would be totally open to changing, is kind of like a Winston ult, where as you get close to allies, you move faster, you heal them more. When you get close to enemies, they get pushed away from you, like repelled off of you.
Sure.
Don't have a really strong feeling about that. Only that I wanted to have that UI. That's all I'm attached to. And it's funny, you talked about your basic attack as a beam. I also picked a beam for my basic attack. I called it a culling beam. It's an auto attack. It's a slow firing pulse beam, and it just does more damage the lower the health the target is.
Gotcha.
I think both you and I were basically just sensing that beam attacks are not really involved in the game as much as they could be.
Not super heavily, right? I mean, you've got Zarya and Symmetra are kind of the two actual beam main attacks, and that's it. Yeah, you've got Echo with her beam 50% thing, which is a heavy cooldown non-main attack that doesn't really fall into this.
And the differentiation with mine is that it's pulsing. That's like what makes it feel different than the others. That's all there is.
Just like hearing all of this together, like I would love to see this hero released and see pros like what actually becomes of it, if that makes sense, because it feels like there's just a ton of opportunity for like actual like intricate planning on how to use those abilities to their maximum, which I wouldn't say is anywhere the same with what I did on mine. Mine's a big hunk of rock who does stuff, you know,
which is what you wanted,
which is what I was going for. Yeah. And yours sounds like it needs not that it needs, but that it benefits from that really thorough thought process about what you're really trying to accomplish, which is cool.
That's what I wanted. I wanted somebody who, like, if you're new to the game, this person can heal people. You have a self-shield. The lower you get, the more effective you are. Like, you can just run around and have a good time. But if you're great at this character, you can do things that, you know, low ranks will never dream of. I also had, I came up with this stuff, and as I was doing it, like you, I was coming up with what is the biography of this character. Mm-hmm. And so it suggested to me someone who wants to see their allies be tested to come to low health so they can be stronger. And so I thought about how to incorporate that into the lore. And so I imagine this as the protege of the scientist who started the Super Soldier program with Soldier 76 and Reaper, Soldier 24. So maybe
pushing the limits of these soldiers. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe they respect their mentor, but they believe their mentor didn't have the resolve to go far enough. And what this character Apex wants to do is, I will take the final test myself. I will push myself over the limits. So
I was even thinking, as you said this, like it could be the mentor in lots of ways, right? The one who's the head of that
it could
department, whatever you're talking about. You know, who wasn't satisfied, had to keep pushing the limits on themselves.
You could go either way. I thought this made more sense just because, like, that would be like, at that point you're talking about someone who's like really ancient. I mean, that could be interesting too, like some old man or some old person who's like pushed themselves beyond, and like they like have injected themselves with some serum that now they don't age, they're de-aging themselves.
They're barely human anymore. Yeah.
But I did think the person I had in mind is they've explored every means of pushing and breaking the limits of humanity. So they've studied psychology, every branch of science. They've pushed their body to the limits. They've tried Omnics, so they're kind of enhanced in that way too. They're constantly injecting themselves. Like the push limits ability, I imagine them injecting themselves, and the longer you hold it, the more serum they inject.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I feel like from a visual perspective of this hero, it could be super cool. Like this person thing that is just like all different parts and pieces of different stuff at this point. You know, like just a totally twisted form of a combination of things.
But I want them. This will sound weird. I want them to be sexy though too. Like, I want transhumanism to be sexy. I imagine them built like because like I say, to me they've explored every means of transcending humanity, and that includes like they are built like a CrossFit maniac. Like they're on the verge of becoming something other than human, but they're just like this lean. Like they have just trained to the peak of what humans can do, and now they're pushing beyond that.
That is pretty darn cool. I'm excited. I can't wait for it to come out. You know, I'll be checking the patch notes.
Yeah, I mean, I know Jeff's not a part of it anymore, but if I could put it in his hands, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Oh, my goodness.
I definitely thought doing this activity, it was really fun, but it just makes me appreciate and respect the people who do this for a living way more.
Absolutely. It's like, I can come up with something that sounds okay, but to come up with an actual hero that's dialed in and is really, really good is a lot of work, a lot of trial and error. Like, I imagine that this takes months and months and months to get one hero down to a point where you can actually release it.
Yeah, I have the feeling that what we did tonight is like prelim to the first meeting you would have about a new champion that you're going to release to the game.
We're the executives saying, yeah, we want this and we want that, and then we give it to other people to go figure out how to actually make it cool and good.
We give it to smart people. Because the reality is that, I mean, we read these abilities, and I heard yours, and I was like, wow, that sounds cool. But honestly, if you take any hero in the game, even the ones that I personally hate, and you read them out like this, it would be like, whoa, that sounds amazing.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that completely. And just because something sounds great, or even if it works really well, balancing it with all the other abilities in the game is an entirely different task on its own. You know, like making it so that it's not overpowered, but is still fun and is powerful enough that you can play it and be successful. Yeah, it's impressive. Kudos to the designers out there.
Yeah. But let's tone down Echo a little bit, though, still.
You know, they did make her ultimate cost 15% more in the most recent patch. So, they're moving in the right direction. We're getting there.
We're moving the needle. All right, let's wrap up there. Thank you for listening to The Intangibles. I'm Kenny.
And I'm Matt.
If you want to talk to us, I'm on Twitter at Wolfbeer. You can use the hashtag TheIntangibles to shout out at me. ask questions, respond to queries and surveys, and we would love to talk to you. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye!